So with that, I encourage you, though, to find a way to challenge yourself like this challenged me. I'm not asking you to come up here and speak. I'm not asking you to lead a life group. I am asking you to think about what are ways that you can get uncomfortable in your faith. As a coach, as a teacher, I believe that rough winds grow tough trees, and that through challenge you find a better version of yourself. And I think as Christians we sometimes get caught up in a kind of a honeymoon phase of our faith where we just want everything to feel good. And then things like envy set in and they don't feel good, and we wonder, well, why isn't God making this feel good? And as I read about this, as I dove into this, I found myself not feeling good. I found myself wanting more answers, and I think that that led me to finding a deeper meaning in this, and hopefully for you, but for sure for me. So this challenge and this opportunity to speak in front of you is actually kind of selfish in my behalf, because I feel like I did learn a lot through it. So I do challenge you to find your challenge. So I'm going to start with a story. I titled this story, What I Thought I Deserved versus What I Got. And you see, on the screen up here, there's a remote control skateboarder. And when I was in like second, third grade, I remember seeing this at a Walmart, Target, something like that, and I knew it's what I wanted for Christmas. I knew that was the toy. And you can look at me, the spring chicken at 30 here, and a lot of you say, oh, you're still a kid, and I feel like it some days I definitely don't. But I was right on that verge of technology becoming what it is today. I was growing up where we didn't have this massive amount of technology in our lives, and we were starting to see it, and remote control cars for sure was one of the big things, and I wanted this. I was intentional with my Christmas list. It was smaller that year because I knew this is kind of a big purchase, bigger than what my parents would normally purchase for us. I remember that I was really focused on my behavior more than, I'm already such an angel at that age anyways, but I was very intentional about my behavior because I wanted to make sure on my Christmas day I opened that gift. And so I made the list. 3, 4, 5 times, all right? I checked that list more times than I probably should have. And I remember my mom bringing gifts down slowly. It's kind of like an anticipation thing she would do. There'd be a little bit more gifts under the tree as we got closer to Christmas. And I remember looking at which ones were mine, guessing. I remember what the box looked like at the store, so I knew kind of the size, rough dimensions I was looking for here. My mom could be tricky, so I was looking for the deceit, looking for the way she was going to trick us. And as we got closer, I was getting more and more excited. There was more gifts under that tree than I deserved, but I was focused on one. And I remember on Christmas Eve after service, we have a tradition where we get to open one gift. And I remember pulling the box in front of me that I knew was this gift. I opened it quickly to discover it wasn't. It was something different. And so I thought, a couple more hours and, I will be able to open this gift. And so went to sleep, woke up anxiously. Parents were obviously taking their time to wake up that day. And I get all the gifts in front of me, and I remember opening them. And with every gift I opened, I became more and more disappointed until I got my last gift and realized that I did not receive this remote control skateboarder. And I had all these gifts in front of me, more than I deserved, more than most kids get. And they were not good enough. They held zero value to me because it wasn't what I thought I had deserved. And I remember my mom, she was visibly upset that I was so upset. I was acting like such a spoiled little brat. And I was. But I was hurt. And this is not a story of envy quite yet. This is a story of disappointment, expectation. How it turns into a story of envy is when a few days later we went to visit some family friends, the Meyerhoffs. Michael was my age. I went to school with them. And we walked in their house. They had stairs going right up, and they had a kitchen and a living room to the left. I remember it so vividly. I turned, and when I got in the house, and I looked, and there's Michael in the living room playing with his remote control skateboarder. And I could no longer hold it in. I could no longer pretend like it was okay, and I just started sobbing. I went and I sat right on those stairs, and I put my head in my hands, and everybody was, I remember their faces like, what is going on? So they kind of gave me space. My mom came up and she said, what is going on? I said, he got the gift that I wanted. That is what I wanted. And my mom looked at me and she said, this is not why we celebrate Christmas. You know that. And she walked away. And so, this is not just about a remote control skateboarder that I wanted. This is about me feeling like I deserve something, feeling like I did the list, I behaved, I did everything I was supposed to. I waited till Christmas Eve, I did everything I thought, and then I still didn't get it, and yet somebody else did. And he let me play with it, and I think we played with it like 5 minutes, and then I was like over it on a new toy. So, that's just how kids are. But it was devastating. But it was a lesson I learned. It's a lesson on envy, one that I have carried with me. And it wasn't honestly until I started digging into this that I rehashed this memory. I remembered it, but I didn't understand its impact. And I think that's the retrospect on a lot of our lessons in life, that sometimes when we spend a little extra time in our Bible or we hear the right sermon, we get to start thinking about, man, how did that impact me, and how is it affecting me to this day? And so, we can go on to the next one for me. I started doing reading on this. You can continue on. And Pastor Andy provided me a couple books. One of them was Saving Graces, Living Above the Seven Deadly Sins. And I got a lot of my definitions and some of my Bible verses out of this, and there's another book I'll reference. I spent time in my Bible, and one of the things I really liked about this was it defined the difference between jealousy and envy and how they grow onto each other. And jealousy was defined as a desire to have what others have simply because they have it. Jealousy is when you see things and you say, I wish I had that, right? It's as simple as that. It's in the moment, you see it and you want it, and it's simply because others have it. But jealousy is not envy, and envy is not jealousy. Envy grows from jealousy. We start with jealousy, and it grows into competition, and that grows into envy. And what I mean by that is that through jealousy, we see things, we want it. We look around, we have a staring problem, as Pastor Andy said. And this grows into competition. For instance, if you get a raise at your work, it is no longer significant if you find out your coworker got a bigger raise, right? They talk about, in this book, they share the example of the landowner who hires someone at 6 a.m. and says, I'll pay you $100 for the day. Then he hires someone at 7 a.m. and says, I'll pay you $100 for the day. They hire somebody at 8 a.m. and say, I'll pay you $100 for the day. The person at 6 a.m. says, this is crap. Why are they getting paid the same when I've been working longer? And the landowner says, I am the landowner. I decide how much you make. You get to determine whether that's worth your work or not. But we get in this competition. And then this becomes a matter of the heart. Okay, if we look at the definition of envy that I got out of this, envy does not just want what the others has. Envy wants for oneself what it deprived from another. And in Proverbs it talks about envy rots the bones. And when we think about rotting of the bones, we think about this internal rot. So many things in our life we think are superficial and we see the impact. But envy is something that grows. And if you know anything about rot, if you know anything about a rotted deck, right? Roger, you know something about that, right, Josh? That rot starts on the inside and grows its way out, whether it's from moisture, whether it's termites, until it starts exposing itself, until it becomes soft, until we see its impact, and then we dig into it, we realize how deep and dangerous it has become. Envy rots the bones. So if we continue on with this, as envy grows and becomes deeper and deeper in our lives, it becomes something that when we look at things, we no longer are jealous, we become spiteful. When we look at things, we're no longer thinking, I wish I had that. We start thinking about, is this fair? Just like I felt when I thought I was doing everything I was supposed to do as a child for my gift. And I didn't get it, and my friend did. And I mean, he was not perfect either, right? I could compare myself to him. I can compare the type of kid I was. I have another definition of envy. Actually a little deeper look into it. Maybe we can go next to that next slide. So this is coming from the book Signature Sins, but envy is dissatisfaction with who God has made me to be. This starts to become a part of your day-to-day life, where you start to identify your struggles in this. And we start going over fair. Is this fair? Right? I'm a Christian. I go to church. I read my Bible. I sing the hymns. I take my communion. I give my money. Why do I not have what my neighbor has? Why are they so happy? Why are they so healthy? I mean, we look on the superficial surface of homes and cars and cell phones and technology, but what about health? What about people who are struggling day to day just to feel good? And they think, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. This is not fair. Well, I actually looked up the definition of fair. And I'm going to get that up here for you. With the definition of fair, I really wanted to just get to the brass tacks of what does fair even mean. Because when we start asking God, is it fair? It is no longer, saying, God, I trust you. God, I'm listening. God, I'm here for you. It's saying, God, wait, where are you? I'm holding up on my end, just like I could have said to my mom or Santa. I could have said, I did my part. Why didn't you do yours? And that's where we start getting into faith. I mean, as Christians, as you go on your walk and you go on your journey, sometimes you can be on the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. And we praise God through the storm. We sing about these things. But with envy, deep rotting inside, where God should be replacing that, we struggle. Let's get to that definition of faith for me. So I'll read it for you. It's kind of hard. In accordance with the rules or standards. So as an adjective, in accordance with, or blonde hair or complexion. But let's focus on this one. In accordance with the rules or standards. It's legitimate. Well, I want to ask you this. If you're saying it's not fair, if God, this is not fair, I want to ask you, whose rules are you playing by? Whose rules? God's rules? The ones God's laid out for you? The ones God's trying so desperately to tell you while you're so busy playing this game of life? With the distractions that we have through a lens that is not His. And I have a picture of cards up here because I think about it. I've always said something to my students about a good poker player doesn't just get dealt good cards. They learn to play the bad ones. If you're not a good poker player, you're not a good card player, anything. I mean, even in spoons, right? My wife's family is a big spoons family, which after the bloodshed, after the broken tables, I kind of like to back off a little bit on that. But with that, you don't know what's coming your way, but you learn to play it the best you can. And as Christians, if I took the analogy of playing cards and just focus on that today, it should be enough to think about. You never know what you're going to pick up in the hand. You never know what's going to be laid in front of you, but you do know you need to do the best you can do with what you have. And that's looking on the bright side. That's being positive. That's being focused on faith. Faith is the antidote to that. Go on to the next slide for me. So what if Jesus had an Instagram? In turn, he does. You can go to the next slide. I actually looked him up. He does have an Instagram. It only has 1.7 million followers. So I don't think there's a lot of Christians on Instagram right now following Jesus. But I was thinking about this. I had a conversation with Pastor Andy, and so much of our world is done through comparison. And with social media, I mean, I have a little thing in my classroom now. I've become a cell phone fanatic. After last semester, kids went online for school a couple of years, when COVID was starting, and I think that they grew an even deeper attachment to their phones in the classroom. I might as well have the cleaver on the table and say, put your left arm out here, we're chopping it off today, when I ask for a cell phone to go in this box. But I put the handbook policy on there saying I can take their phones, and it goes in there, and they're getting adapted to it. But the big thing here is that I want their attention for that little bit of time I have them. And when that thing is going off, someone's contacting me, someone's reaching out to me, someone's said something about me, something, and we do this never-ending game of comparison. And we think this is just a teenager problem, but it is not. Us adults, we have cell phones, we have smartphones, we are online, we are looking at Facebook, we're looking at these vacations. And I was just wondering, what if every other thing we went to was from Jesus? What if instead of our friends on their vacation, our friends with their perfect little kids, our friends with their beautiful hair, whatever, and then there's Jesus, and he said, hey, look at me for a second. Come back to me. And you can like it and go to the next one. Then Jesus says, hey, look at me. This is the lens I'm talking about. Are we trying to see the world through God's lens or our own? And by our own, I mean our pain, our trauma, our greed, our lies, right? We've convinced ourselves that the guilt we feel towards things is normal because that's what everyone is doing. Right? I'm going into massive amounts of debts because I deserve it. Or I made that splurge, or I said what I said because, well, they would have done it to me. But that's not what God calls us to do as Christians. When we look at envy, I want to keep going back to that rot, that inner rot, because this is not a once-time, a slip-up. You drove by, you saw someone with their truck that you wish you were driving, and you started to slander them. Or you started to wonder, or you started to question, or you started to ask God, why is that not me in that vehicle? Okay, and that's that lens, all right? That's that filter, we can call it, and nowadays, right? Getting the right lens. And I want to dig deeper into this, and as I started thinking more and more, I don't want to come off as perfect. I don't want to come off as I have this figured out. I do not. There's no reason I am up here and you were sitting down there. We could just as easily be switching spots. And as I was driving home Saturday morning, I went to watch UNI wrestling with my brother and some friends, and I was driving home, and I just had the radio off, and I spent some time quietly thinking about it, and a Jeep Wrangler passed me on 20, and I have literally always wanted a Jeep Wrangler. I had a Jeep Cherokee when I was a kid. It was about the only thing I could afford. My dad worked at Holden Motors, and that's what they had, and I spent everything on it. I loved that thing until the brake lines went out, and I went in the garage door a little bit. But yeah, so I always wanted this Jeep Wrangler, and I see this one, and it had the tires, it had the lights, it had the shine, it had everything you would want in a Jeep Wrangler. My wife and I last weekend got dressed up for this banquet we went to, and I said, I have a really hard time putting on this nice suit and getting into our minivan. It'd be like putting a diamond ring in like a Burger King box, right? That's how I feel when we get dressed up and get into our, as my wife calls it, a loser cruiser. But that Stow and Go is really nice. I gotta say, it's practical for what it is. But with that, I see that Wrangler, and as I'm thinking consciously for the last couple of weeks on envy, I see this car and I realize that I am practicing envy right now. And I wanted to look in this perspective of if what we value is what we're putting value on. And I think that money is a root of not just evil, but the root of a lot of our frustration, a lot of our trouble. We look at divorce rates and financial problems going along with that. And this is not what I'm going to go into. If you can go to the next slide for me. What I'm going into is not going to be all about money. I'm just going to make that be a little bit of the focus. I want to start though with faith. The antidote is faith. Faith believes God will provide what we need, what we need. Envy is sure it will not be enough. Faith is focused on God. Envy focuses on others. And Pastor said when we asked for the offering, he said, pass the plate. Be thinking about what you're wanting to give. And with inflation and everything, a really good excuse to say I can't give as much. And then we look at our Amazon cart and we're looking at what we're ordering later, right? I'm going to look at money in that sense. If faith is God saying he'll provide, I'm there for you. I will give you what you need. And you say, yeah, I get that, but my neighbor's getting more. So what can I do? All right. So I started going down on the rabbit hole of research. All right. And I provided as many links as I can. Go to the next slide for me. So homes in America, this comes from Ramsey Solution. Americans with a mortgage payment, with a mortgage, pay a median monthly payment of $1,595 a month. In Iowa, this is about $1,200 a month on average. And obviously, as you go to different states, it's more, but that's on average. This is 70% of all American debt, totaling $10.44 trillion in debt. So 42% of households have mortgages. That's over 51.5 million total American households. So yes, we need homes. We need a home to live in. But if you go deeper in the research, you find that our homes are getting larger and our families are getting smaller. Our close circle of friends and the people we love is minimizing while our floor space is maximizing. And if you look at it, if you're driving into towns, you're seeing, like if you go to Cedar Falls or even in Des Moines, I don't even know what Des Moines is anymore, like Ankeny, Des Moines, it's all like this giant composite of brand new homes. If you're driving around, it's like that's like the catalyst for what draws towns together, are these homes that are flying up. If you're in the industry, if you know what's going on, these homes are going up faster than ever. Go to the next one. And we talk about cars. I've already talked about vehicles, but the average monthly car payment in America for a new car was $568 a month and $397 for used vehicles. A lease car, the average lease payment in the United States is $467 a month. Okay, so nearly 86% of new cars were financed in 2019, and with that, 55% for used cars. Now, we need a car, a lot of us for transportation purposes, for getting our kids, like my wife and I, that's why we got the loser cruiser, we needed the van, right? We needed a van, and whether we got the top of the line van or the bottom of the line, we made that decision for ourselves. Okay, but if money is what we're replacing our value, if you're looking at things, go to the next slide. We can even look at cosmetics. This is from 2019 data, but 92% of cosmetic procedures went to females with 12.4 million total cosmetic procedures. For males, 8%, so 1.1 million. This is directly about, cosmetic surgery for whatever reasons, but when I think of cosmetic surgery or plastic surgery, I think about directly changing how others view you. When I think about some vehicles, I think about how others view you. When I think about some homes, I think about how others are viewing you. Right? When we think about social media, we think about Facebook, when we think about Instagram with the filters, we think about how others are viewing us. What are we displaying to others? Right? So you can look at it and say, I got these likes, or that guy turned his head when I drove by, or my house is up on the hill. And we can somehow pretend like that is bringing us happiness. And God is saying, are you focused on me? Go to the next slide. And what I mean by this is I started to pay big attention. This guy's saying attention. Only 5% of Americans are tithers. 5% of Americans are tithers. 80% for most give about 2% of their income. So out of the tithers, only 2%. Now, this is not a sermon about tithing. This is not a sermon about convincing you to give more. But I just want to draw attention to if we place our time and our energy and our money in things we value, things we care about, our focus in our life. In America, that is our homes, our cars, our technology, our clothing. It is not the church. It is not God, according to the data on money. Now, we can look at a lot of things. We can look at how we serve. We can look at how we're involved. But I am just focusing on money right now. That I wondered, everyone driving around. I remember when I first got my first job in North Fayette Valley teaching. I remember pulling into my old Jeep. I could feel the floor moving from the rust underneath of it. You know, like it was getting to that point. I loved that Jeep. But when I pulled in and saw that 90% of my students were driving nicer cars than me, I started to wonder. I visited a school down by Iowa City, not to say which school. The Land Rovers, the Cadillacs, the Mercedes, driven by 16-year-old kids. And I thought about this. I immediately feel the rot. And I think as you grow further in your faith, you know what I'm talking about. When you feel it, when you say something, when you do something, and immediately the guilt of God kind of comes over you like a warm blanket saying, that was not the right decision. And I remember seeing these cars and seeing the houses and seeing these things and instantly being envious. As a kid, wondering if I received more presents than my friends, if I had the nicest shoes for the sports we went out for. You know, we've been comparing ever since we were little. And I think about, well, what's in my control? Because with my finances, with my life, with the things I'm doing, with my job, with my career, with the people I want to be around, with the kids that I want to help, with the influence I want to have, is my car what's most important to me? Not really. I paid Casper $6,000 for the truck. Came in clutch for me. I needed that though. But with that, my truck runs. My kids are safe in it. The heat works. I cannot complain. Now, when I see that Wrangler pull out, I might dream, I might fantasize, I might make a financial plan to one day own it. But with that, I have to be content, happy with what Christ has for me. So with faith as the antidote to this, saying that God will provide, and envy says it's not going to be enough. I have some next steps, some things for you to think about in this. If we can go on to the next slide. Psalms reads, surely God, Psalm 73, surely God is good to Israel, to those who are pure in heart. But as for me, my feet had almost slipped. I had nearly lost my foothold, for I envied the arrogant when I saw the prosperity of the wicked. Now, you can be strong in your faith. You can have the love of Christ in your heart and struggle with that staring problem. So when we look at the none of your business, normally it's kind of like we think about us telling people it's none of your business, but I'm telling you that it's none of your business. You don't know their struggles. You don't know how hard that perfect family has fought and worked and what they've been through to grow so strong. You don't know what that person sacrificed to get his dream car. You don't know the struggles that goes on in that beautiful home you pass by every way when you drive to your lesser home. Okay, what you do know is you know the love of Christ. You do know what faith entails. And you do know that it does not mean that your road is going to be paved in gold. You do not know, you're not sure, I guess, that what tomorrow brings. I mean, it was almost 40 degrees last week, and we hit like 5 again today, so we definitely know what it brings, and we can hope for that warmer weather. But if we don't get warmer weather, guess what? Put another jacket on. God provides you another coat. God provides you strength in these times. Okay, but we have to be asking ourselves something. And so for next steps, go on to the next one for me. This is, I'm going to really point out regularly. If I can't encourage you to focus on envy or think about your rot or think about what you look at for people, here's one thing I want you to encourage you to do. A daily practice, a regular practice. Just like the dentist says brush your teeth twice a day and you say, I got it at least once. Sometimes twice. Do you floss? Yeah. No, they know right away. Don't lie to your dentist, because you're starting that conversation off with a lie, and they're going to know. God is like a dentist. He knows, okay? So what I'm saying is regular practice. A moment of stillness. Set your alarm a half hour early before the kids are up. Or wait a little bit. Put this dang thing away for a little bit longer and open a Bible. Or just go be alone. Find a quiet space and regularly spend time with God. And think about maybe some of these questions you can ask yourself when you're talking with God. Am I looking to God or to the Joneses? What I mean by that is when you're in these moments of making a financial decision, a career change, maybe it's something smaller than that, where you're spending your time, where you're spending your energy. We only have so much energy. I wish we had meters. I wish that someone could see my energy meter someday. And then I wish, though, that I could look at it and say, where did I waste this? Right? It's easy to do that when you pull up the bank statement and you go, oh, crap. I did not, yep, okay, I got to talk to Emily about, she's been making some Amazon purchases. Right? It's easy to look at it. What if you had a bank statement? It's all for me. She's buying me gifts. But what if you had a bank statement for your energy levels in life, and you asked, am I looking to God or am I looking to keep up with the Joneses here? When you're scrolling through your social media and you see someone with the abs or the hair or the family or the car or the vacation, are you looking to God right now or are you looking to the Joneses? Another one to ask, am I asking if this is fair or am I focused on faith? Because if you're focused on fair, faith cannot grow if you're focused on fair. They counter each other. They pull on each other like a tug of war. And if you're focused on fair, you're not getting the strength from your faith when you're focused on fair. And the last one is, am I living by my values or attempting to buy value? Know what's important in your life. Know what gets you out of bed in the morning. It's got to be more than than making money. It's got to be more than going through the motions. And Monday cannot be about living for Friday. Because you sitting here in this room right now, I'm sorry, you have a burden on you. That means that you get out of bed for more than just that. You get out of bed for Christ. And a lot of people make excuses as to why they make these decisions. I know I have made these excuses for financial or for personal decisions. And it was all about this life. But if you are a Christian, if you believe in God and the love of God and salvation through Jesus Christ, you are not living for this life. So if you're trying to keep up with the Joneses, if this envy is rotting you, if you make a decision, you feel that guilt, realize that you are replacing your faith with envy. And this is not something you're just now choosing. This is something that's grown inside of you that needs to be treated. It needs medicine. It needs Jesus. I don't know how you do that. I don't know what to prescribe you. But I do know that you need to spend time evaluating these questions in your life. If not regularly, once a week, but don't just do it on Sundays. And that was something I'm very appreciative coming in here, being able to prepare this for you, because I was heavily convicted when I read this, thinking about all the ways I falter, all the ways I fail. But that's why being a Christian is so great, because it's not failing. It's just humbly looking up and saying, okay, I'm ready for more. I understand my faults. I understand where I'm struggling. And God, I understand that you know this as well, just like a dentist looking in my mouth. So help me prescribe that toothbrush that has a 2-minute timer on it. God, give me that prescription for what I need in my life, and I don't know what it is. I wish I could tell you. I so wish that we could walk up here and say, Pastor Andy, I'm struggling with this, this, and this. What do I do? And he says, read these verses, drink this water, holy water, take this communion, and then get on out of here. But no, it's something you have to live. And just like how that envy grows inside of you, God has to grow in you. And he won't just come in and say, hey, I got the wheel from here, man. Take it easy. He says, I'm going to challenge you. Like I've said up here several times, Mama told me, don't pray for patience because God will give you things to be patient about. But do pray for him to make you aware of this. So I want to pray with you before we leave. Dear Lord, I talked a lot up here. I hope you said some of the words, maybe, with all this that I covered, all the things that I'm trying to bring attention to, Lord. I just pray that you are shining light on what's important to the people here in this room. I pray that you're helping them identify their struggles in life, and they don't just ignore them. They don't just assume it's normal. They don't just pretend that it's okay in the world we live in, Lord, because this world we live in, societal standards, cultural norms, rarely are they rooted in you. But our lives are, Lord. And we pray, Lord, that just like envy that rots inside, that you are inside, fighting this battle with us, helping us identify the areas that we need to grow, we need to change, we need to become stronger, that we need to seek help in, Lord. I pray that we are brave enough to seek help. Lord, I pray that as we go through this week, that our envy is shown, is felt. And we can tell ourselves it's none of our business. My business is with you, Lord, and my walk with you. Be thankful for our blessings. Be thankful for our struggles. Always looking to you in life after this. Amen. All right, get out of here.